We are very excited to have on this evening Anthony Aguilar, who's a retired United States Army Lieutenant Colonel and Special Forces officer who served for 25 years. This past summer, 2025, he became known as a whistleblower after making public allegations about operations at U.S. and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid distribution sites in Gaza, where he worked as a security contractor. I think many people probably were first introduced to him when he was interviewed on BBC. Just as a reminder, this was what we saw at the beginning.
This is not a battlefield, though it might look like one. It's a food distribution point in Gaza. Bullets are kicking up the sand as men wait to get food. It's one of 4 sites run by the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a joint Israeli-US scheme they say replaces the UN and keeps food away from Hamas. This video is of the foundation's armed American security guards opening fire.
I think you hit one.
It was filmed by a US soldier who signed up for the operation in Gaza after he retired and left, he says, when he saw American colleagues and the IDF killing civilians. The soldier is Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, a Special Forces veteran of the US Army's Green Berets. He's in Washington. I spoke to him from a spot just near the Gaza border.
I witnessed.
Hello, Mr. Aguilar. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. That is such chilling clip, and to hear that voice saying, "I think I got one," just blows me away every time. Thank you for what you've been doing, and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I think everything that you two do to speak out and continue the truth is critically important. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
That's very kind. Thank you. I am shocked, actually, that after your revelations, but it seems like nothing makes a dent in any humanity and the people in power. But should we just start with that you so clearly have laid out the genocidal behavior and those food traps where thousands of people have now been slaughtered as they are coming for morsels of dried food that's not even really usable, and it seems not to have made any movement with the people in power. What do you feel about that?
So I do think that it has pushed the needle a bit with some in power, but it has failed to register entirely with anyone in our legislative or judicial or executive branches that are paid by AIPAC. What I have come to realize in this journey is that what is happening is not about politics, ethnicity, religion, gender, culture. It is money and power. If you think about the views of the Zionists and the views of the GHF-backed Christian Zionist leadership, Zionism and Christian Zionism cannot coexist. Yet, here we see them as convenient bedfellows in the persecution of the Palestinians, which leads me to believe that it's not about religion. It's about power and money. And religion is being used as a way to manipulate the beliefs of all of us. And it's powerful. And what the world needs to wake up to, and especially Americans, is that this is a genocide. Do not try to call it by another name. By every measure of international law, the Geneva Conventions, international humanitarian laws and standards, law of armed conflict, laws of land warfare, this is a genocide. It is by design, and the United States government, through its funding and participation in this, through Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, through State Department dollars to the range of 60 million that have been put into this effort, the United States government is absolutely complicit in this genocide. We are turning the gas of the chamber, if you were to equate this to a World War II concentration camp scenario. We are, Uncle Sam is in the gas chamber turning the nozzle. And it's evil and it's wrong And American people need to stand up and put a stop to it, because our leaders will not.
Can you speak to, and I agree with everything you say 100%, especially the abuse of religion to manipulate people, and Zionism, the fact that we've got Christian fundamentalists supporting a Zionist project just doesn't make any sense, really. But can you speak to why you were brought over there in the first place, and what specific atrocities you witnessed firsthand or knew about, just to lay a little foundation for people?
So, I was not seeking adventure or money. I have no desires to be rich or run for politics or have a lot of friends. I'm very happy with my station in life. I just retired from 25 years of service in March. I took on a very easygoing part-time gig at Lowe's Garden Center, so I can, kind of do my chi in the morning and ground myself to the earth and be happy. I was not looking for this type of employment. The UG Solutions, who is a subcontractor to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, called me on May 13th of 2025 and recruited me because they were specifically looking for individuals that had a special operations background that could perform in a risky, high risk, dangerous environment. And regardless of who's doing what, Gaza is a dangerous environment. At that point, I was not too informed of the current situation, other than I knew that the Israeli government put a stop to any UN aid through UNRWA going into the enclave, and that the United States, in coordination with the Israeli government through the Coordinating Office of the Governance in the Territories, COGAT, I would recommend everybody look them up and you'll see how evil this is, was hand in hand in making an attempt to feed starving people. So I kind of listed in my head when I got this call, okay, well, here's what I believe to be true. People are starving. Here's a fact. The UN aid is not allowed to go in. Not because they can't do it or because Hamas has infiltrated them, but because they can't. Israel controls what goes in and out. That Israel will allow this American mechanism to serve aid, to bring in food to starving people. I want to be a part of it. I have lived my entire adult life from the age of 17 until this past year in war, in risky, dangerous environments. I feel comfortable in an environment like that, so I felt that I could help. I went into this employment of this contract with the understanding of two things, at least to my perspective at the time, was that, one, the United States was a good faith actor in attempting to deliver humanitarian aid. Two, Israel would abide by the agreement in allowing the U.S. to be a good faith actor, to operate independently, unilaterally, neutrally, and to provide aid, to provide what is needed. That those were the assumptions that I went in with. Those assumptions were shattered very early on. And it then became clear to me, without question, without justification, without any explicable reason as to the contrary, why we were delivering so little food that only equated to one meal every 2 days, why we were delivering no water, why the aid sites had been set up and established in an active engagement area, a combat zone within Gaza. All of these things, in looking at it, isn't a bad plan. It's a horrible plan if you're doing humanitarian assistance. Right. It is a perfect plan if you're trying to commit a genocide.
Right.
And the facts were clear.
So first of all, I love everything that you have said, and we've both watched you, I think probably many members of our audience, over the past few months as you've, revealed more and more and been confronted with some of the lies from Boston Consulting Group. And, there is a concerted effort to discredit you, which I think, you've provided your receipts and the reasons for, and laying out the reasons that you left and the rationale behind some of your correspondence with them. Between seeing the way former allies of yours turned on you, and the way that some of the propaganda Hezbollah that we were all told on October 7th, what happened on October 7th, both, which was almost entirely debunked, and genocidal atrocity propaganda in order to justify, not that it would, but to try to justify the genocide they knew they would commit. Has that, like, how do you feel looking now towards this organization that you spent almost your whole adult life serving? That must be so dystopian for you.
That's a great question, and it's deeply personal, and I'm absolutely happy to discuss it because it has been a revelation to me in that many of us, again, joined when I was 17. 9/11 happened. The whole narrative or the idea of, if we don't fight them there, will we fight them here?
Yeah.
And little by little, I went around. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Spaceballs, when the guys are in the desert and the guy says, comb the desert, and they have the giant comb, and they're like, we ain't found shit. Like, I felt that way in Iraq. Like, weapons of mass destruction, like, I've been here like 4 times now. We ain't found nothing. Like, where are they?
Right.
I thought, well, they don't have any. I thought that's where we were here. Well, no, it's not actually. We're here for this. And you look at Afghanistan, and you look at Iraq, and you look at Syria, and you look at Tajikistan, and you look at even in the southern Philippines and the influence of the great Zion Empire, that our leaders have influenced service members into lies to which leaders themselves, I think, don't even know the difference. And when you look at the conflicts that we've been in and why we were there, I think that the American people should demand accountability of our leaders, past and present. And when the sad thing is, and this goes back to my previous statement, that it isn't about religion or ideology, or you try to kill my dad, so I'm going to overthrow your country, or whatever the dynamic is to why we went into a war. The truth is that it's money, the military-industrial complex, and power.
Yep.
That is exactly what we are seeing in Gaza, in Palestine, in the West Bank, and in Gaza. Why would the company CAT want to not fund Israel anymore, where they make 200% profit on every D9 bulldozer they make here and send over there, and the Israelis will pay top dollar because that's what's taking down houses? Why would Raytheon or General Dynamics or any of these large-scale defense companies that are selling munitions and ammunition by the billions, with a B, billions, why would they want to give up that cash cow? They don't care about the future of America. They care about the future of their bank account. Most of them aren't even American. So when you look at these things and you start piecing it together, it becomes very clear that those in power want to maintain power. The rich want to get richer, and they will use every means at their disposal to include patriotism, religion, our beliefs, and tear at the moral fabric of our country in order to achieve those things. And what I will remind every American here listening, when we get pulled into another war, are their children going to fight in it? Do you think Barron is going to pick up a rifle? Do you think Eric or Don's kids are going to pick up weapons? Do you think Jared Kushner's kid's going to pick up a weapon? No, your kids will, and they'll die. And you'll get a lovely little flag, folded up, given to you with a little, your country owes you a great debt. And it will be because rich and powerful people are dragging us into a war that they themselves will not fight, but they will pay for. That's the reality that I've come to learn. And man, did it hurt, because I did it for 25 years. I've handed out a lot of flags for a lot of dead soldiers that I served with, that I was in charge of. And it's a heavy weight to look at, but now I realize that I can't stand by as a bystander and let it continue to happen. I don't want your children, my children, the next generation fighting in a war that has no purpose, fighting in a war for someone else, dying for a Zionist view of the world. I can't stand by and allow that to happen if there's anything I can do about it.
Amen. I was going to ask you, as you're bringing up the point about, the military industrial complex is behind, they're an ecosystem that depends on war to make money. And so what I see happening is, as the U.S. gradually extracts itself from the Palestinian war, I mean, we'll always have troops there, of course, and be the huge cash cow still, even in peace. But I don't think it's a coincidence that we're back to talking about rearming Ukraine and doubling down on that now, because look, they need to get their money somewhere, so there will always be a war, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
The name of the game in the military-industrial complex, and President Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander and President, warned us about this. Warned us about the military-industrial complex. And that if because after World War II, we geared up the American economy for war. I mean, we stopped building Ford trucks and we started building bombers. We stopped building, whatever, and started building it. And man, we were good at it. And a lot of people got rich. And President Eisenhower himself, who was in charge of that war, later came back and said, we must be cognizant of the military-industrial complex, of the cart leading the horse. We are now involved in a cycle, a very vicious and toxic cycle of constant war, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's in Tajikistan, whether it's in Israel and Gaza, whether it's going to be in Yemen or the southern Philippines, or blowing up boats off the coast of Venezuela. We are always going to find a war to get into, because the people that really pull the strings, the people that are really in power, and it's not Donald Trump, I hate to tell you folks, he's just a puppet. They will ensure that we are in constant war. However, I have confidence that the American people, in enough numbers and a voice, can stand up against this. And we do not have to be the nation that has the Department of War.
Yeah.
Pete Hegseth is a joke. And anybody, I will give some credit to those general officers sitting in that room in Marine Corps Station Quantico that didn't clap at his corny, stupid jokes.
Yeah.
But what I will say they stopped short on, that I say shame on you cowards, is they didn't get up and walk out. Because as an officer, as a United States military officer, we do not take an oath to a king or a crown or a queen or a ring or a throne or a president or a Congress or a political party or a defense secretary. We take an oath to the Constitution. Things were said on that stage by our commander-in-chief and by our Secretary of the Department of War that are in contrast and violate the Constitution.
That's right.
The fact that one of those general officers didn't have the gall to stand up and say, sir, I'm out, not going to support it.
Yeah.
And what do they have to lose? In their retirement, they will still make $300,000 a year in retirement. Right. What do they have to lose? But even them, in some respect, still want that power. Being a 4-star general, a 3-star general, a general officer, ooh, that taste of power. It's scary.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they all sat there silently when there was the explicit demand to go against rules of engagement and the Constitution, in addition to the insulting and all of the sort of ridiculous clownery. You said that you were just coming from a protest. I've seen many clips of you protesting with sorry, because I'm going to forget her name, but
Josephine
Guilbeault, right? And at the beginning of Trump's regime, there was, and just so you sort of know where Pat and I, or I'll only speak for myself, but I think there's very little air between us politically. I'm way to the left of Democrats. So I have as much contempt in me for the Biden administration as I do for the Trump administration, for different reasons and all of that. But when the sort of glaring disregard for domestic law amped up even more under Trump, at the beginning, there were these town halls, and it was fascinating for me to see law enforcement officers dragging military vets out of town halls, people saying, I served this country and to protect our right to protest, to free speech, and you're dragging me out of a town hall with my representative. And at that time, I had a glimmer of hope that maybe the military, who is better trained and for longer than police officers and certainly ICE, would come to some kind of conflict with this, domestic Gestapo that we have. How do you feel about it? I feel like a very enormous boomerang effect is happening, right? Like our cops that train with the IDF and the Little Gaza and the West Bank and all of that come back. They're using those tactics on our citizens and on military vets. Are you feeling that tension or?
I feel that tension in a way that the influence of AIPAC and the influence of the Israeli government is very strong, not only financially, but also ideologically. And you have individuals that would then say to someone like me, as of, from before September 3rd, 2025, all the way back to June of 2000, I was a patriot, loyal, best officer of how many in my officer reports and whatnot. Right. But man, after that, I'm a traitor. I should be hung. I should be court-martialed. I should be drug outside and shot by a firing squad. All of things which the United States military does not do in its persecution of UCMJ anymore. So thank you for your opinions on that. But for all the people that said those things, what I would like to share with everyone is that here is the background to that. I didn't just show up one day and walk into Congress and say, I'm going to make a scene. I had spent months going to the Capitol 2 to 3 times a week, walking up and down the halls with appointments or not, talking to congressmen, senators, and representatives on both sides of the aisle. Right. And for some, there was a lot of concern and a lot of engagement. For some, they could care less. And for others, they cared, but it was absolutely care to protect the interest of Israel, not the United States. One of those individuals was Senator Risch, who is the chairman of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. The Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, in terms of the legislative branch, is one that part determines who gets what money. Right. Senator Risch is one of the largest donors of AIPAC money. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's the American Israeli Political Affairs Committee. Some people think it stands for Political Action Committee, and that's why it should be in the FARA. It's not. They have this very benign sounding name. Oh, we're just the American Israeli Political Affairs Committee. We just educate and inform. Bullshit. They're a political action lobby, and they pay a lot of money. And Senator Risch is one of those. He chairs that committee. So I went to that committee specifically to sit in there for the committee that he was chairing. It also happened to be the same day that the Global Samud Flotilla was in Tunis. And on that day, in that hearing, was the nomination of the American ambassador to Tunis. So things came together to where it was a good time to do it. Now, inside that chamber, all I didn't throw chairs or take my clothes off or dance around the hall. I stood up quietly with a copy of the Constitution in my hand. And I held it up with my right hand and I said, the United States is complicit in genocide. You took an oath to the Constitution and you're in violation of it. That's all I said. And then I got tackled and dragged out. And honestly, it did shock me. I thought I'd be told, hey, be quiet, or hey, thank you for your opinion, service member, or Mr. Aguilar, please sit down. Okay. The fact that they chose that route to it further shows me that these are Gestapo tactics right out of the book. Yep. Right out of the people that wrote the book. Quiet the truth, quiet those who have. It's like when the French soldiers returned from World War I and they were like, hey, France, you did us dirty. And the French were like, oh, how do we keep the vets quiet? So that same thing taking place here. So what I would like everybody to know is that in no way did I violate my oath. I took an oath to the Constitution. If you don't know what oath an officer takes, look it up. It's only 2 sentences. I swear an oath to the Constitution to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I take this oath freely without reservation, period. That's it. So if you don't know what oath that I took, don't say that I violated my oath. Go look it up. I did not violate my oath. Being in uniform does not violate any Army or DOD regulation. It violates a DOD instructional that dictates uniform wear for those that are on active duty. I'm not on active duty. So nothing I did was wrong or in violation of anything. In fact, it was right. And what I want to further, the police that arrested us, I'm a Hispanic American, but the police officer that arrested me, who is a Black American, and took me outside and pushed me into held me against the wall and cuffed me. I said to him, I was like, one generation, your father, your grandfather weren't allowed in this building. Why? Because of people like that who are ignorant and won't listen to the truth because it doesn't suit their personal need or their personal vision of the world. Think about that. We're in the same boat, my friend. It's not money, or excuse me, it's not religion, it's not race, it's not color, it's not creed, it's money. And if anyone out there doesn't think that the tides can turn and you can be the next that's shackled in chains or forced to shut up, you're ignorant and you should read.
Pat, do you have a question? I have so much I want to say, but I don't want to step on your toes.
Well,
or
I
ask.
just want to add.
Yeah.
I just want to add to what you're saying, and not only has the money taken over our politicians, but now the IDF and the Israeli interests have taken over all of our social media because more and more young people are disregarding CNN and CBS and ABC. Although they've got censorship divisions there run by people with Israel's interests first and foremost. So we're really running out of safe places to discuss this. So it could happen to any of us. Like our podcast could get pulled off the air because somebody on YouTube is an AI bot, that's run by Palantir, for example, could be studying what we're saying and picking up on something that sounds anti-American, for example.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. Do you feel like this is a big comment, so I'm going to read it in a moment, but I don't want to block your face. When you were working with the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, there were other ex-military with you, and did they have the same response as you did to what was happening?
So a lot of while working for UG Solutions as the armed security component in Gaza, I was not the first to resign. There were many that resigned before me for reasons of the exact same reasons. There were others that resigned after I left. So I was not the only one. But what I will say further to that is that what's really interesting to me now, it was interesting to me then, but it's interesting to me now, is that more so now, is that yes, a lot of veterans were hired by UG Solutions, not exclusively veterans, but a lot of veterans.
Right.
When we got into Israel, we landed in Tel Aviv at Ben Gurion Airport. We were held up for hours getting all of our luggage and everything, and then they put us in these charter buses. And the next day, when they put us back on charter buses to take us back to this hotel to get a briefing, they took us to Sderot. Sderot is the location, the hillside, just outside of the eastern corner of Gaza, outside of Beit Hanun, which is where the offensive is going on right now, actually. And this hilltop, many of you have probably seen it. It's been in social media. It's been on the news. On this hilltop, you can picnic there. There's vending machines. Yeah. There's an overlook that they've cleared so you can see Gaza City. And they even have those large binoculars, like the ones you'd see on top of the Empire State Building, where you can see. And they have like one of those little board setups, like at the fun park, where you can like put your face in like the surfer and get a picture. It's a tourist attraction to watch the bombing of Gaza City, and they took us there. And this Israeli officer, an IDF officer who was assigned under what I mentioned, Kogat, because Kogat is under the Ministry of Defense. Okay. This officer was there, and he was talking to us about the bombing campaign, and it's successful, that soon all of this would be ours, meaning him talking about it. And so me being the dumb kid in class, I raised my hand. I'm like, It's like, I thought we were going to be feeding people. Like, that doesn't. We're going to own all of this and we're going to kill everybody. That doesn't jive with feeding. I mean, where did I miss the memo? What am I missing? And he was like, well, we are going to feed them because your government insists on it, but we don't think that we should be feeding our enemies. And I was like, oh, interesting data point. Okay, well that's a puzzle piece. Okay, interesting. But then I also noticed that a lot of the other contractors, because I didn't know any of them until we really got into Israel. They all had either on their forearms or their biceps or their shins or their calves, some of them blazoned across their chest or back, this infidels tattoo, Crusader shield, infidels, 1095, First Crusades, and kafir, which is infidel in Arabic, like our Secretary of War has on his forearm. And I was like, did I miss the tattoo station? How do all of you have the same tattoo? Like, where did, man, I missed a lot in the prep here. I didn't get the memo about genocide, and I didn't get the memo about the racist tattoos. Like, so I then discovered that the majority of the population of the folks that were hired directly for this contract, they were recruited directly from the Infidels Motorcycle Club. They hired the national chapter president, bingo. They hired the national president of the Infidels Motorcycle Club, Johnny Mulford, who was in charge, who they put in charge of the contract, who then recruited people from his club nationwide, plus a chapter in Germany, to then be the contractors for this. So a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them not only think that what they are doing in Gaza is a pilgrimage or a crusade, or their calling in life to kill Muslims in the Holy Land. To kill Muslims in the Holy Land is it's like they would die and be happy. They all go to Jerusalem and get this a tattoo that they all get, and they all they're all, it's like a boy band, but like a lot worse. Yeah. And then and this mindset, and I was like, what is this infidels? What is this? And I look it up. In order to be a member of the Infidels Motorcycle Club, 1, you have to have served in the military. 2, you have to own an American motorcycle. 3, you cannot be in any law enforcement position that gives you arrest authority. Man, those are some pretty high ideals. But their charter is more disturbing. Their charter as an organization is to fight jihad globally and to eliminate all Muslims from the earth. That's who Israel hired to serve food to Palestinians. Does it need to be made any clearer?
Wow. Oh my God. That's so disturbing. I didn't know about their charter. And I'm not trying to judge or anything, but on October 8th, we talk about this all the time. I heard Norman Finkelstein say, I do not condemn Hamas. They are fighting for their liberation. And yes, horrific things happened on that day, but horrific things happened on October 6th also that we don't talk about. As we know, 2023 was already the deadliest year for Palestinians killed by Israel in the West Bank. And so, there is this, do you condemn Hamas, the recall constantly to October 7th, and the designation as terrorists of people who are fighting against the most powerful military in the world, backing the IDF. How does that make, did that cause any change in you, in your feeling about Hamas? Or do you, what we have heard and seen in reports from very early on after GHF started was that the armed gangs were not Hamas, they were ISIS. So there's all of these people we've been told were terrorists. Now, we're in league with them. We put one of the top terrorists, Al-Qaeda, in charge of Syria. Everything that people were sold for so many decades was that, these are the bad guys, these are the terrorists, we're the white knights in shining armor spreading democracy. And it feels like that's it's almost impossible for anyone to continue to believe any of that anymore. Was there a shift for you, or had you already seen so much of that in Iraq anyway, in Afghanistan?
Yeah, this vision of the white knight on the white horse charging to save the damsel in distress. I had that vision of myself, and then I ran through the puddle of Syria, and the paint washed off, and I was on a donkey wearing aluminum foil. So it's such a powerful narrative, and I think that to dissect the first part of your question with October 7th. Well, October 6th, October 5th, October 4th, and years before that were far, far, far worse. Now, what I will say is that I do condemn violence, believe it or not, the military, as long as that. I condemn violence. I condemn any targeting of civilians or non-combatants. However, what I will say in regards to Hamas, if Israel can have a defense force, well, then the Palestinians should be allowed to have a defense force.
Yeah.
This whole conversation about Palestinian statehood and if we're going to recognize them or not, that is such malarkey. They already exist.
Yeah.
They exist before, and they have a right to exist now.
Yes.
Great colonial imperial powers of the past saying, "Oh, you can exist." If I were a Palestinian, I'd be like, we do exist.
Yeah.
Were you going to not make us exist? Like, why is that even a question? Why are we even questioning it?
Yeah.
So when you think about Gaza, especially in Gaza, let's just talk about Gaza for a minute.
Okay.
We've been under occupation by land, sea, and air in every aspect. They have been occupied militarily on the ground in their land.
Yep.
At what point do you push someone enough to where enough is enough and they don't have a choice because they see that they are being eradicated day by day with the dropping of bombs or the starvation? The Israelis even have a term, mowing the grass.
Right.
Every few years go in and bomb or put them on a diet where they limit the food going in. Smotrich and Netanyahu have said these things. This is I didn't get this out of the National Enquirer.
No, I know.
So when you look at these things, it's like, well, why, it goes back to the old saying that, one man's patriot is another, or one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist.
Yeah.
You could take a lot of those same characteristics and apply them to us in the 1770 through 1776. And a lot of it would apply, but oh no.
Yeah.
If it's against them, well, then now they're terrorists. And what I would say further is that Israel is not an ally. We say that all the time.
Yeah.
Israel is not an ally. Diplomatically, they are not classified as an ally. They are a close partner. They are not part of any alliance that the United States is a part of. The United Nations is not an alliance. NATO, other alliances, they're not a part of any of those alliances. They are a rogue nation who at this point has demonstrated behavior in attacking every country that shares a border with them. They're like the worst neighbor in the neighborhood.
Horrific. I mean, it's a lunatic nation.
Seven wars. I mean,
they're just bombing everybody around them and then say we're in a rough neighborhood. Like, how will they ever have peace? They will never have peace. And even if they exterminate Hamas, there will be other people. People want to fight for their liberation. It doesn't matter what you call them. There will be another group that is fighting for liberation. And also, I do just want to make the point that, when October 7th happened, that Nova Festival was not supposed to be there. That was not where it had been.
The registration for that land had already ended. They allowed them to extend.
Yeah. And, as much as they'll say, we have to, the IDF will say we have to kill all of these people because they are somehow related to somebody who's in Hamas, which could just be like the municipal governing Hamas, not the militant or the armed resistance. Every single Israeli has to, except for the Hasidic, have to enlist in the army. So they are all, they truly are all militants at one point. I understand that when you're not actively in combat, but like to look at a child who's the son of a garbage collector in the Hamas government and label him a future terrorist, if you use that same logic, then anybody who's 18 or above in Israel has actually already been or is part of the IDF, right? So, I mean, that kind of logic will never see peace if everybody is just a target.
Well, furthermore, what I would say that this is something that kind of I almost just started a checklist of the protocols of the Geneva Convention and everything that was being violated. And one of the questions I had asked in that question of, well, then they'll all starve, was that, well, they're not all Hamas. No, they're all Hamas. Oh, classifying the entire population as the enemy. Let me see. Oh, let me look. Oh, that violates the Geneva Convention. It actually says it. Yeah. You cannot characterize and identify the entire population as the enemy in a conflict and then target them so. It says it. Yep. There's a rule about it. Like, we had to make a rule about that. So look, I was like, man, that's another tick of the war crimes. And yep. It's disgusting that when I talk to some of our leaders, our politicians, our elected legislative officials on both sides of the aisle, bicameral on both sides of the House and the Senate, and I talk to them, when I speak to them about these atrocities of the killing of children in mass, the indiscriminate and the discriminate targeting of children and women and men that are non-combatants, that are unarmed civilians on the battlefield, and that they're being targeted, the response from a lot of these folks isn't, oh my God. The response is, oh, we know. Yeah, we know. We support it. They're all Hamas. And I'm like, you're an American lawmaker, and that came out of your mouth? Shame on you, tyrant.
And they have no shame. Randy Fine and the who's the other guy, Blessed, I can't remember his name, but they are very vocal about their genocidal ambitions.
We had an American lawmaker, Mass, I think it is, Brian Mass.
That's who I meant. I said, yeah, Brian Mass, yes.
Into the halls of Congress. What? I mean, if that doesn't show you that our lawmakers have been compromised by money or ideology from a foreign government, I don't know what will. Yeah, the question, Brian Mast, and look at Fetterman. Fetterman never puts on a suit, and the first time he did was to go to when Netanyahu spoke. If you can get Fetterman to a suit, that's who your daddy is.
And Trump pushing Netanyahu's chair in.
Well, the picture of when the administration gave Milikowski, I don't call him Netanyahu, gave Milikowski the phone to call Qatar for the pre-scripted apology. Our president is sitting there in the Oval Office with the phone in his lap like he's an errand boy. I thought our president ran on America first. For all of you out there that voted for Trump, for everybody that voted for Trump, he's not putting America first. He's not standing tall as the strong president. He's not the president for peace. He didn't agree to a peace agreement. He got talked into a document that will go down in history as an embarrassment to diplomacy.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the peace agreement? Because it seems like it's being crafted so Israel can break it willy-nilly a month into the thing.
Oh, well, they've already not only broke it, not even abiding by it. I mean, the president made the announcement from the Oval Office like he was talking about the moon landing. And at the same time, Israel continued to bomb the Gaza Strip. Not in Gaza City, but they were bombing along the Rashid Road, which is the coastal corridor which connects the north to the south. They were bombing along there. Oh, we weren't bombing Gaza City. We said we'd stop bombing there. We didn't say we're going to stop bombing all of it. It's like, okay, so they're playing games. And what Trump got walked into, because he's not a diplomat and he doesn't have understanding of policy and politics. And what I will give Milikowski is that guy is a politician and he is crafty.
Yep.
It's like Milikowski showed up to play checkers and Trump is playing marbles. I wouldn't even say, or excuse me, chess.
Chess and marbles, yeah.
Trump's not even playing checkers. And when I saw them read these 20 points and it goes boom, 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 and I'm just listening to it being read and then reading it on my own, it really kind of harkens back. And if anyone that you haven't read this, the the Berlin Conference of 1885. And in that conference, in the European colonial powers breaking up Africa, divided this. If you look at Africa, you'll see that they fall along lines of latitude and longitude. It's very convenient, right? And the tribes of Africa were like, we didn't agree to that. That doesn't work for us. You're cutting our tribe in half. You're cutting, actually, this state that you made cuts 4 tribes in half. That's not going to work for us. There's going to be war forever. And the colonial powers under the Berlin Conference were like, you'll figure it out. And now look at how Northern Africa has been left. It's the same thing. We did this peace agreement, and we did not invite or bring into the conversation of this agreement the other side.
I mean, I don't understand how this is being allowed by all the other, NATO countries or countries in the UN, or, I mean, there are 195 countries and versus Israel and the US. Because, I mean, I think Europe is slowly peeling away. I think BRICS has sucked a little bit of the wind from the sails, but now it just feels like it's, like a smash and grab at this point. But also, I'm curious, when Israelis are on that ledge overlooking the devastation and rubble of Gaza, I mean, obviously it doesn't affect them on an emotional level of their humanity or the slaughter that their nation is doing to a whole group of people. So even like that aside, how can they look at that and think, oh, that's going to be our Gaza Riviera? I mean, it is so clearly an ecological disaster zone of cancer and toxic air and water and soil. Like, it just feels like such a disconnect from their idea of what it's going to be. And Trump also, like his Gaza Riviera plan. I don't understand when they think this will ever materialize. Nobody will ever want to go there to vacation. Like, that's insane.
You would sincerely hope not. It would. But I mean, I look at our own country, and under the Manifest Destiny, when we rooted thousands of Native Americans off their land and put them onto reservations, and you put in what's that water park? You put in a Great Wolf Lodge, and you'll get people to forget a lot about genocide. So, oh my God. It's sad and it's disgusting. And that is why those of us that are living this and have seen it and know the truth need to not let this disappear into the annals of history and become unknown. We have to maintain awareness of what's happening, because that is what the people involved want us to forget. They want us to forget this, so that when they're making billions of dollars, well, I guess at that point with the value of the dollar would probably be trillions of dollars on their beach resort Riviera of Gaza, people will forget. People don't forget. Do not forget. One thing, what actually disturbed me more than the hilltop overlook in Sderot. Again, it's designed as a tourist attraction. Yeah. Picnic tables, vending machines that have a sign in Hebrew that said, buy a snack because they can't. And you're like, what? It's horrible. But what I saw that actually disturbed me more, that actually made me feel almost sick inside, was the town of Ashkelon. So on the Mediterranean, you've got Tel Aviv. A little bit further south, you've got Ashdod, and a little bit further south, you've got Ashkelon. And Ashkelon is the city that borders Gaza. Ashkelon used to be part of the greater, or what was even the now 1948 line of what is now Palestine. That's been pushed in over the years. But Ashkelon used to belong to the Palestinians. There is even under the modern construct. So in Ashkelon, there's a sports bar on the beach where a lot of the American contractors, because they put us in a hotel in Ashkelon at two of the big luxury hotels in Ashkelon. And there's a beach resort right outside the hotel on the beautiful Mediterranean, white sand, beautiful waves. There's a sports bar that when you go into this sports bar, just like you would in America, and you see the football game or the baseball game or whatever, they have televisions connected to the cameras that overwatch into Gaza City, where you can sit in this sports bar and watch the TV and see children being bombed, or children swiping up water out of a puddle to drink, or people being blown up, or people starving, or a rubble building, and as the smoke clears, you see bodies hanging out of it, and people sit there and say things like, yeah, you know, no, they cheer it on like they're watching something in the Hunger Games. And there are Americans, GHF contractors that are staying in Ashkelon that frequent this place and join in with the cheering of the people that they're supposedly trying to feed. It is disturbing and it is disgusting. And when our senators and our congressperson or our representatives from our Congress go on these all paid for Israeli education trips, can you get more communist than that? These re-education trips where they take them to Israel, they take them to Sterdot, they take them to this sports bar, they take them to Kibbutz Be'eri where they spill the lies. And I went to Kibbutz Be'eri, and when I was there, I looked at it and I was like, the bullet holes in this wall don't look like they came from an AK-47. And last time I checked, Hamas didn't have 30 millimeter cannons. This is 30 millimeter fire from an Apache or from an Abrams, and they don't have Abrams or Apaches, but you do. You have Apaches. How did these bullet holes get here? And then that led me to looking up the Hannibal Directive, and they don't even deny it.
It's been all over Israeli media. Somehow it's not made it to, I mean, yes, to like Gray Zone and Electric Intifada and, you know, Drop Point, but not to, or Drop Site, I always get that. But like, they have not covered that in legacy media or corporate media at all. And they admit it.
More Israelis died at the hands of Israeli soldiers than they did from Hamas. And that's a fact.
Yes.
That is a fact. I mean, that Israel doesn't even deny it. And when confronted, well, yes, we had the Hannibal Directive because we didn't want these evil barbarians to take our people hostage. So you killed them? Like, what kind of world do we live in where we all sit back and buy that?
Well, and also just to see, you know, even if you are an America First person, you know, there are something like 40 some odd Americans who have just been kidnapped. There are Americans who have been rotting in one of the torture dungeons. This young kid, I think he's 17 years old, who's been there now for months. Nobody's doing anything about him. Yeah. I mean, there are American citizens, journalists who have been killed there, and nobody is doing anything. And watching other countries' hostages coming back who were kidnapped off of the flotilla last week. And I think there's been one U.S. citizen who's been released.
It's, well, one. So out of those from the GHF, the Global Salute Flotilla, they obviously allowed, you know, after they roughed her up and embarrassed her, they allowed Greta Thunberg to leave and others because of the high profile that their incarceration would bring upon Israel. But the rest of them, all the rest of them, are in the prison in the Negev desert where they put all political prisoners. It's basically the Israelis' version of the Siberian, going up to Siberia. Never going to see you.
Site. Yeah.
Like a black site.
Yeah.
And they're being held there. And amongst the group of Americans that are being held there are American veterans, Marines, Army Rangers, Navy, Air Force, veterans who were on that boat. Veterans.
Greg Stoker, that boat, the one that Greg Stoker was on, was almost entirely veterans. Is that correct? I think, right?
Yes. Greg Stoker was one of them. There were many others. And so, you know, the United States mission to Israel, and I say the State Department mission as in the consulate, the consular affairs, and the embassy, haven't made a peep, haven't even gone to visit. And yet, Ben-Gvir did a tour yesterday where he walked through the prison, parading it around, saying, this is what happens when you break the law. This is what happens to terrorists. He's calling a humanitarian aid flotilla, which the ICC and the ICJ, the International Committee, the United Nations have said that anything going in to bring humanitarian aid can't be blocked or stopped. They had no weapons. They weren't fighters. They weren't military. They didn't have anything that was in any way offensive or hostile. They were delivering And we, you know, it saddens me that the United States sat by.
It's
Go ahead, Pat.
truly horrifying.
Well, I
Sorry.
was just going to say, you know, clearly they have no right in international waters to board any ship.
Just pirates. They're just like hooligans.
They weren't even in their, though, illegally declared security zone, which they've now just arbitrarily named.
Right.
They weren't even outside of that.
Yep.
So I guess now does Israel just control the entire Mediterranean Ocean? Are we? Because basically that's the standard we're setting, that they can.
We're out of rules.
They can bomb. They can bomb their neighbors. They can do whatever they want on the high seas.
Assassinate negotiators, people they're supposed to negotiate with.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
pretty soon we're gonna send up a moon mission to replace the American flag with the Israeli flag and change the narrative that Israel went to the moon first.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. It is pretty bleak, and I mean, I think there's really nothing positive, but I think most Americans now see that there is no international rules-based order that the global South has known for, centuries.
Great point.
So I think, in that regard, I think it's opening up a lot of people's minds, which of course is why there's this huge crackdown even more on freedom of speech. We said we were going to keep you for 45 minutes. It's been an hour. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? We're so thrilled that you've come.
As long as you want me. I love this platform. I love talking to you too. It's an important. So yeah, say, what was that again? Is there anything else I wanted to say?
I don't think you are on social media. Where can people find you? I see you're doing a lot of media, guest spots, which are so informative, and you speak so well about something so horrific, and you lay it out so clearly. So thank you.
Well, I being there and having touched it, observed it, smelled it, looked these children in the eyes, these mothers in the eyes, these fathers in the eyes, to see a father, I'm a father, to see a father carrying their dead child who starved to death, and they look at you, and you look at them in the eyes, and you see that was the love of his life. That was his future. And you take that from a father or a mother or just any human being, but you look at that and as a father and you see that, and you have to describe it clearly. So a couple things coming, when I first got back from Gaza, it was not my intent to do media. I went to the Capitol and I spoke to Senator Van Hollen and Senator Welch and Senator Saunders and some others, and they did some interviews with me. And before they released them, they said, we want to make sure you want to go with media. So I called my wife. My wife is a retired Army officer. She served for many, many years in the 82nd Airborne. She's a combat veteran. And I asked her about this, and she said, you have to go to the media. You have to be a voice for these people. The pictures you've showed me, the videos you showed me, the stories you've told me. You have fought in Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan, and never have you been as disturbed as you are from this. You have to tell the world, and you have to give them a voice. And I said, okay, well, I'll do it, but I'm going to do it anonymously. And when I said that, there was some silence on the other end. And I was like, honey, are you still there? And she said, if you don't take ownership of this and go forward with your name, you're a coward. And I didn't marry a coward. And if you need to speak out on this. And you need to put your name against it. And I said, oh, well, people might make fun of me, or people trash me on social media, or, this so-and-so may not like me anymore. And she was like, you are a child. Grow up.
I love her. I
was like, so I got my marching orders. So for me, the way I think about it is that my wife, my family, my parents, my friends, I'm 44 years old. I'm not looking for new friends. In fact, fewer friends, the better. So where I am in life, I don't care what anybody out there that I don't know or that I've never met says about me on social media. Some guy that has his name is like Cheddar Pants Cracker Face. Like, who cares? I don't care what Cheddar Pants Cracker Face says about me at 2:00 in the morning on his live platform. I don't. So like when people say like, oh, so-and-so said something, I'm like, who? Oh,
Yeah.
well, we don't know somebody. Okay, well, guess what? Zero F's given. I don't care. What I do care about is my soul and the truth. And I know that one day, soon, not 20 to 30 years from now, someday, soon, the world will say that this was always wrong. The world will say that we
Yes.
always stood against this.
Yeah.
And there will be those that have, and there will be those that haven't.
Yeah.
One day, our children, my son, will look in the history books, just like I looked at the history books of World War II, and they'll say, what about this and what about that? And then he'll say, because I was gone for a significant period of time. Weren't you there, Dad? Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you stand up for them? It's wrong. I have a choice. Future me has a choice. I can look my child, my son, just as that man was carrying his dead child in his arms, the love of my life, my children, and look at him and I can say, well, it's complicated. Or I can say, well, that it was the right thing to do. Hamas, use their excuse.
Right.
Or I can look at my face and I say, I stood up for what's right, whether it was popular or not. And that's exactly what I want you to do one day, son, regardless of what it may be. Stand up for what's right, not for what's popular, not what's going to make you rich, not what's going to make you, give you a million friends on social media.
Right.
Do it because it's the right thing to do, and you can look yourself in the mirror. I'll say that to my son, and that's far more important to me than what anybody has to smear or say anything to me about I'm lying or this and that. Okay, I was there. I saw it with these eyes. I smelled it with this nose. I touched it with these hands. I know what the truth is.
I just want to
Amen.
say that, it's so important what you're doing, for one, because it comes from a military perspective, but also that there's no media over there that could tell this story. We should have demanded a media presence from the jump. And a lot of these stories it wouldn't rely on you having to be a whistleblower at this point.
And sorry, I'm just going to put the caveat in, which I know you also agree with, but there should be international media. There was media there, and Israel killed almost all of them. Like there are, I know you know that, I know, but I just we are seeing fewer and fewer videos and reports coming out of Gaza now because Israel's killed over 270 journalists.
Mohammed Salama, reporter, freelance for the Associated Press, but also a staff reporter for the Middle Eastern Eye, was killed on the 25th of August at the Nasser Hospital double tap incident. Right. He was the reporter who was standing on the balcony when that first tank round hit, and it killed him and another reporter. And he was someone that I would call a friend. I had spoke to him about what was going on in Gaza. He had talked to the family of Amir. He was actually working on a story because he had confirmed that Amir, the boy that I met on the 28th of May, had been killed. And 2 days before that, on the 23rd, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the UG Solutions, the infidels, had a source, one of his sources for this story, and detained them and questioned them, interrogated them. And then 2 days later, he's dead. This is not an accident. They are designing a genocide. And the first step in a genocide, dehumanize the population. They've been doing that for years. Right. Step 2, kill all the media. The most dangerous thing to the Israeli regime is a camera.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to ask you because your telling of the story of your seeing Amir and the way he kissed your hand, we showed that when you first came out with it, and we were all sobbing, and then the development of them again trying to obfuscate the story and say, oh no, we found him, he's safe, he's with, and then the proof that was a different child that they were showing. But so I was going to ask you, they are for certain that Amir was killed, like or nobody's been able to find
him. I have a video that was sent to me from Mohammed Salama that shows Amir dead, and it's gut-wrenching. But also I was there, and what I saw, and what I would further say is that when you look at this breaking down, just talking about the situation. The fact that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation focused on that aspect and not understanding, the truth is that, like, okay, was I at site number 3 on the 28th of May? Yes.
Right.
Did this young child come to me and speak to me and the other contractor standing next to me and have an engagement with us? Whether, he obviously kissed his hand,
Right.
and kissed mine, and that there was an engagement. I saw this boy. Was this boy then pushed off of the site by UG Solutions contractors who use stun grenades and tear gas? Yes. Were the IDF shooting at that intersection? The video that you saw, that you showed in the BBC clip in the very beginning, and everybody should know, I want everybody to connect this. That video clip is that intersection where the exit of site number 3 intersects with the Marag corridor, where you see everybody lying down on the ground and you see that kind of that strip of dirt up there. That is the Marag corridor. That is the intersection of which the thousands of Palestinians get shot at and gunned down every day by the IDF. Those bullets coming in that you see hitting off the ground, and then some of them going into the crowd, are fired from the coaxial machine gun of a Merkava tank at that site, at that exact location. That gunfire you saw is the exact situation that Amir and others would have ran into. So all of these are facts, undeniable.
Right.
So they're making a point of like whether he was dead or not.
Right. Right.
What about all the other stuff?
Exactly.
What about the fact that he killed his family? Or the fact that he's an 8-year-old boy who's wandering tens of kilometers by himself, who's starving with no water, who then has to retreat through gunfire? Whether he lived or not,
Right.
that's the story.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that young child, like many, many others in this war, in this genocide, have been killed by the thousands. They want to take this one piece and say, oh, look, we're great. This one boy made it.
like the underlying condition of people they're
That's right.
Like it just,
and the entire condition of that, in the displacing the population to these food sites, puts a Palestinian in a dilemma. Do I starve to death, or do I go to this site and risk getting killed? There's risks to both. And now it's even gotten what I would say is even more disgusting and more nefarious that the United States must be held accountable for. They are now, because they've established the Humanitarian Assistance Transit Area to the south, which is a concentration camp.
right.
Every survivor from the north will be moved to the south into this camp, where American UG Solutions guards will stand guard on this camp. There's no running water. There's no sewage. There's no food being brought on a regular basis. There's no medical facilities. There's no prime power. So you're going to have people there that are dying of starvation and disease. And when they reach this site from the north, they survive the journey. They get biometrically enrolled. A biometric enrollment device. Everybody, if you can Google it and look it up. It's called the Seek 2 from Crossmatch. That's what they're using. Fingerprint, iris scan, photo into the database, and you get to go inside. And you know who then controls that information? The Israeli government.
Right.
There's another, the Nazis did the exact same thing. It's like they just took the playbook.
They've actually compared themselves to Nazis. They've said, we want to do exactly what Goebbels did. We want to do what Hitler did. We're going to turn this place into Auschwitz. I mean, they say that out loud. It's the most amazing thing. They're quoted in Ynet and, Times of Israel. I mean, I just...
Times of Israel even quotes that. And Times of Israel quoting that, they don't see it as being anti-Israeli. They think it's great. Look at this. Yeah, it's great. Of course we want to kill.
You're the Ubermenschen now. Yeah, me too, Jen. I mean, just between crying and rage, and it is such a blight on humanity. And I just when we go through, we've been doing the show now for several years, but going through some of the graphics and the articles and the clips from 2 years ago and thinking it couldn't get worse than this. And then every day you see something more horrifying, and that it's, I feel, I just can't believe this is happening and we can't stop it. And, so inspired by people like you, who I think, it probably went against your core on some level even more to have to see some of the people you had worked with or thought were the good guys for such a long time and have to reassess that. I think must, be ground shaking on some level. I know for me, I'm Jewish. I was raised not super religious, but certainly, with the soft Zionism that I think most people in the US were brought up with, like, oh, Israel needs to exist for Jews to be safe, that sort of thing. I've never been to Israel, but like that. So even just for me to shift in the last, 20 years, as more information became so much more available on the internet, I could access old documents. I think a lot of us are having to sort of just re-examine the foundation that we were raised on. And that is difficult work, but it is so important because nothing will change otherwise.
And yes, it's the stories of who we are as a people and our land and where we come from, as even in the United States, is this melting pot, is important, and it's a powerful narrative, and that is why Miłkowski and the Zionists use that narrative, because it's powerful. But what people need to remember and realize is that Zionism is not Judaism.
No,
the future of Israel cannot exist in a Zionist worldview. And for every American, to the Mike Huckabees and to the Johnny Moores and everyone else who are proclaimed, I'm not giving them this title. They self-identify as Christian Zionists. Well, if you read the book on Christian Zionism and you get to the end on how it ends, and you read the book on Zionism and you get to the end on how it ends, those two can't coexist. At some point, there's going to be a Zionist and a Christian Zionist sitting in a room. It's like, well, we're both at this point. One of us has got to go. They're incompatible. It's irrational to use that argument in either case. And wake up. It isn't about Christianity or Judaism or even Islam. It's about money and power. Yep. Do you think Donald Trump gives 2 cents about Zionism or Christian Zionism? I guarantee you, I'm almost certain. In fact, I put a paycheck on it, that if I were to sit in the Oval Office and I brought in a map with none of his little advisors sitting next to him that had no labels on it and asked him to point out Israel, that he probably couldn't.
I think you're probably right. I think you're right. Pat, do you have any more questions before we let Anthony go?
No, not really. I mean, I appreciate everything you've done. It's really instructive. I think, hearing from you, what we're not hearing from our media is really important. And you're sharing your story is powerful, and couldn't thank you more for coming on here.
Really, thank you.
I thank you all for your time. I think platforms such as this are vitally important in our times, that voices of truth that aren't manipulated or bought off by others. It's what you do is brave, and I commend you and thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Truly to you. And so where can people find you? Or should we just, I don't think you're on social media. Are we looking just at your different action events and media appearances? Or
I guess
where's the best place?
Action events and media, I don't have any social media, just
smart.
Primarily,
smart.
I know myself, and I know if I haven't, that I'll become like pulled into that and trying to like disprove everybody out there, and it would be pointless. I guess I can give everybody my MySpace account.
Well, we will keep an eye. Please, you are welcome back anytime. This was such a brilliant conversation. We really appreciate it, and we will continue to pull clips from your other appearances and share here. Everybody is just sending you their love and support and gratitude, and thank you. We've really loved this discussion with you. Thank you. Stay safe. That's the other thing. We're all very worried. Stay safe.
Yeah, I'll be up in DC tomorrow. I'll leave tomorrow afternoon. I'll be up in DC, and for October 7th, I'm going to be protesting at the Capitol. I'm going to be reading from my favorite book. It's called The Constitution. I'm going to be reading excerpts of the Constitution on the steps of the Capitol, and if they arrest me for that, whoo, man, we are in a bad place.
Well, stay safe. We'll be crossing all of our fingers and toes for you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.